Hi there, and welcome back to the Tavern at the Nexus of Everything. A sexy little dive floating on a rock in the astral sea, a place where lost socks, pocket change, big gliders, and unlikely heroes are found. A conflux, if you will, of multiversal potential. Folks gather from near and far by intent or by happenstance to experience handcrafted libations and edge-of-your-seat combat. As a valued and regular customer, you've probably noticed a series unfolding on the third night of each week on the scrying screen scattered about this impossible tavern. A group of adventurers trudging through history on a remote, young world called Abhaile. Now that we're 8 sessions into exploring a part of this world, I thought it might be a pretty good time to hop in and maybe dispel some of the confusion that comes from a new homebrewed world setting. Abhaile is a spherical planetoid, similar in size to the third planet in the Sol system, where a shocking amount of you weirdos come from. Seriously, you all make up like a solid 3/4 of our demographic. It's like you're all perpetually lost or something. Unlike that planet, Abhaile has 2 moons, the first of which, Ayat, tidally locked to Abhaile, shining down in a likely familiar soft white glow. The second, Aru, defies logic. It defies physics, defies artifice, orbiting chaotically, changing direction, elevation, and even distance, while still seeming to be locked to Abhaile as well. Having no latent gravitational mass effect, though, on the planet below, as it shines down with a dull, milky blue light at night, and almost a shadow in the daytime, just slightly darker than the cloudless sky. Looking up at those moons and the stars beyond, many burgeoning civilizations have found their homes in and on the lands below. Far to the west, on the island of Shantath, amidst a torrent of primordial fire, earth, and rage, a pilgrimage of fey elves escaped a cataclysm in their realm, taking refuge under the shadow of the massive smoldering peak that dominated the vast island. These unseelie Eladrin refer to this period as the Summer of New Stars, an epoch of despair as they struggled to adapt to a new world, on a new land, constantly in fear of the fire giants that followed them through the portal at the peak's summit. Confused, alone, they created direction for themselves as the first fire genasi was born on those hell-wrought slopes. The disparate Eladrin clans looked to these incredibly rare children with reverence and awe, protecting them, guiding them, and developing these genasi into the spiritual leaders of their people. As the population grew on the island of Shantath, conflicts with the fire giants could not be avoided, creating a capable, martial people forged from fire under the light of new stars. As time moved along, the Shantathi escaped the confines of their island torment, pushing out into the vast plains, splitting into a number of great nomadic hordes. They swept across the land, incorporating or annihilating numerous small proto-civilizations as they roamed the land, following the stars. At least until the northern tribes encountered the dwarven fortress city of Darudin, along the coast, to the north of their home island. These small-statured, mountain-dwelling people proved stubborn and steadfast, willingly resisted the Shantathi who attempted to encroach. Elsewhere, other Shantathi tribes pushed east and southeast, through valleys and plains, along rivers, towards the unknown, as their stars guide them. On the western shores of that land's great inland sea, at the base of a mountain range known as the Five Watchers, scattered orcish clans hunt and gather, oblivious to the grand machinations or metaphysics that make up Abhaile's pantheon. These orcs lived a chaotic lifestyle, often finding themselves in bloody conflict and even their neighbors as they jockeyed for resources and homesteading locations until shadows poured forth from the Watchers themselves, corrupting life and minds of all who drew near. Panicked, scattered, one tribe managed to escape the desolation, taking flight into the untamed forests, led by their guide, Jolyn Mudpaw, who dreamt of paradise and set herself towards leading her partisan tribe to its warm, safe embrace. These orcs were not the only ones displaced by the darkened horrors, for the mountains in this land has been home to Abhaile's dragonkin since time immemorial. Naira was one such haven for these powerful ancient beings, located high in the peaks of the Northern Watchers. When the darkness came, it came for them as well. When their patriarch, a great silver dragon, was slain, the dragonkin beneath him tried to flee, but were not as successful as the partisan orcs. Only a handful made it to safety, including Jet, the kobold, taking refuge in the grand city of Ulara. This great inland sea that I keep referring to was formed as a result of plate tectonics, where two landmasses collided, pushing up mountains and collecting the sea between them. Over thousands of years, the weight of all of that water pressed down, forcing it through crag, through valley, through fissure, equalizing the water levels on either side of these new mountains. Trillions of gallons of water eroded away a great channel underneath the mountains known as the Spiny Peak Range. Hundreds of miles long, completely subterranean at points, while landslide and time opened massive canopies above in other areas. At the center of this channel, the grand city of Ulara. Among dragonkind, Ulara was their capital on Abhaile, ruled by a benevolent bronze great worm. These people flourished in secret. As the oldest continual civilization on the planet, Ulara was built into the very walls of this massive cavern, with hidden deep vaults hoarding precious metals and stones, mined from the mountains around them. While some toiled in the mountains, others fished in the rivers, tended crops lit by massive naturally occurring skylights. They would eventually push out, following their cavern west into the great inland sea and east across the great waters to the outlying islands beyond. As we shift the scrying sensor further east and north a little bit, we find a challenging, if not brutal, environment. Further north than we've been this far, the land of Boreala. The land of Boreala fought hard against its inhabitants. Fortunately, the wills of these people matched the tenacity of the long frigid winters. In fact, it surpassed that tenacity, tamed it, claimed it. The Borealans first gathered in Centris, nestled beneath the wellspring of two rivers flowing down as runoff from the Frost Shield Mountains. They found a safe haven for arable land and access to the vast sapphire waves to the south. But they wouldn't stay in Centris for long, though. These hardy folks are natural-born explorers, their curiosity driving them to the furthest corners of the map and beyond. By necessity, Borealans value hard work, cooperation, and conservation. The land's limited growing season emphasizes the importance of contributing to society, fostering collaboration, and planning for resource sustainability. The society operates under a system of aristocracy, based on land ownership with titles passed down through generations. The Borealan Council, an assembly of landed aristocrats, settles state matters, and a regent, who is elected by the aristocrats, enforces those decisions. That keystone drive to satiate their curiosity, coupled with their sense of civic duty, would push the first exploration parties out into the wilderness, where it was quickly discovered that a select few among them could divine the brushstrokes of Abhaile, lending them unparalleled skill at navigation. And for the uninitiated, which is, I think by definition, you, Abhaileans refer to the ley lines that crisscross the world as the brushstrokes, faint memories of the moment of creation when Lua, the painter, created the canvas of life. Anywho, guided by their magical providence, they struck out, establishing Vestergaard in the west beneath the Sundercloud Mountains, and treating with the dwarven city themselves, with less bloodshed, I might add. Explorers struck out eastward as well, establishing Port Umbra, after catching glimpses of halflings in the Viridian wilds to the north. Their curiosity still not sated, they began to test the waters, so to speak, and soon set out as 4 massive sail-powered ships set out from Nexus Harbor with their eyes set on the horizon. Meanwhile, to the far east, on the continent of Cadenzia, arcane hubris led to the cataclysmic collapse of Aloria, a magicratic city-state nestled far to the south in a mountainous region known as the Impassed Pillars. What transpired is unknown, but it sundered the land, carving swaths deep into the bedrock and blighting the surrounding area for thousands of miles. Sensing this coming doom, Jane Onster, the High Spellblade of Aloria, led an exodus into the suffocating desert of ash. They traveled north through immeasurable hardship, while mourning the loss of their entire way of life. Thankfully, mages had become quite adept at surviving. Guided by fate, Jane led his group by the light of Aru until they reached the edge of that desert, finding a lush, humid expanse of untouched potential. Fate would continue to smile upon these survivors as they made camp on the shores of a large coastal inlet. With daybreak, they marveled at the sight before them. A massive island set off that very coast, made entirely of smooth, blue crystal. It was as if the moon had landed and said, "Hey, this place is cool." And it was. And Onstria was founded on those very storm-kissed shores. As they pressed outwards from Onstria, their magic made short work of taming the wilds before them. Pressing north, they founded Port Rose amidst a sea of red flowers on a bay opening the nation up to the eastern oceans. Like moths to a flame, the survivors of Aloria gathered around Jane, seeking guidance and leadership. Fortunately, he remembered the fate that befell his homeland. Instead of following the same path, he compartmentalized Onstria's government, establishing the Novanarchy, an assembly of 9 mages elected by popular vote for both their intellect and arcane prowess, while Jane returned to what he knew best, the blade. Retiring from politics, he retreated to Port Rose, establishing the Cadenzi, a group of stalwart blades that would be Onstria's guiding blade in these new, uncertain times. For centuries, Onstria would remain compartmentalized, training new mages very selectively, establishing within their elected assembly a sort of pseudo-dynasty, where apprentices would replace masters, often within familial ties, until about the 702nd year of the new Onstrian epoch. Javan Razan, the High Arcanist of the Novanarchy, completed construction of her crowning accomplishment, the Athenium, an absolutely massive tower of transmuted black marble. Deep in the rolling hills of the Roinan Mountains, the Infinium would serve as an institute of higher learning, open to all with the willpower and the knack to study the arcane mysteries. And if the tower itself was the crowning achievement, the crown jewel rested beneath it, the Grand Archive, a collection of magics and oddities collected from far and wide, stored safely to be studied, reproduced, or kept safe from those with ill intent. Jane Austen's intent remained true, emboldened in Austria's motto, "We remember." While the curates instructed pupils in the weaves and flows of arcane arithmetic above, below, archivists collected and collated the work of her artifinders, or explorers, sent out into the world to add to the archive's grand repository of knowledge. While Aloria was a magocracy through and through, Austria departed from that dogma. While a number of the population was indeed quite gifted at the arcane arts, the majority were just normal people, toiling as normal people do, passionate followers of Corelia, the moon goddess. Patron of order, justice, and fair trade, the Austrian common folk were in every way the backbone of the society, cultivating shellfish of amazing quality and farming the subtropical plains. The labors brought forth ripe fruit. Austrians took very favorable to the waters around their home, using them to conjure a magic of a more simple weave, a magic of life. Much like their unknown neighbors to the north, they too were driven to the open oceans. The Adrian, a massive carrack, set out from its birth in Austria City, as workers began constructing a series of naval beacons along her western coast. A series of great white stone towers shining light out to sea, guiding ships safely along the rocky, jagged coast. While the illuminated coast was being lit for the first time, the Adrian pushed out into the unknown, after picking up some interesting gifts at Perigee Point, the doorway to Moondrop Bay, a nobleman and a foreign dignitary. Almost simultaneously, the Infinite, sister ship of the Adrian, was finished at Port Rose and set out to map the bounds of their new land. While traveling north through a perilous passage known as the Perilous Cut, they made landfall on a large sweeping island that they called Laurel. It was here that they met with unexpected guests. Fair folk from the Feywild had escaped through a portal into their lands, fleeing from darkness that had consumed their home. Eager to help their new friends, the Infinite took a beat to help them establish a new home in the town of Tavern. Jane Austen was not the only one to lead a group to safety following Aloria's demise. Great Warden Alari Makani fled north with her 3 sisters as well, but her group of survivors largely consisted of Aloria's human working class, non-magical folk. They had an easy choice: stay the course and die of thirst, or turn west towards the storm-wrought isles. While Jane had a healthy respect for the magics that saved his people in their flight, Alari held no such reverence. Her people crafted simple canoes from what trees they could find and took to the ocean, abandoning their teachings and principles that had nearly seen their end. With barely any supplies, her people carved their own lot in life from tropical palm. And without the generational memory of the long-lived elves, the Sundering slipped their minds. Aloria slipped their minds, until they became simply the people of the maaaaybe Islands, living simple lives. They spread throughout the archipelago, forming into small, tightly knit communities, working together for the betterment of all. Trade blossomed, and islanders pooled their limited resources to ensure that everyone had a bite to eat and shelter from the storms. The maaaaybe may have escaped the deadly forces of magic, but on their islands they found magic of a different kind. Gifted souls who could read the wind the waves, and the rain itself. Warning of approaching storms, mastering the natural magics of Abhaile herself, channeled through storm seers known as Tomoatwi, like the one that joined the Adrian at Perigee Point. The simple life suited the Moanwi, but fate has a way of adding complication to simplicity. Guided by their new friend, the Adrian pressed westward through the archipelago, while the Horizon, one of Borealis' flagships, came down from the north, her pathfinders carving a path through a giant rotating storm that had also impacted the islands. The three cultures would meet for the first time on the silver sand beaches of Miyamoto, an island deep within the chain, where they came together to found the first international free port of Takor Harbor. The rest, as they say, is history. You all know the story by now. A multinational coalition of volunteers pressed inland at the behest of Maya, the Moanwi representative from Miyamoto. This group consisted of Varlas Garavel, the brave Austrian artifinder, Corvin Smithson, a humble Austrian guardsman, Scylla, a dragonborn knight from Ulata, and Shala, one of Miyamoto's own Tomoatwi. If you're curious about their story, it's right here on this channel, as we let the dice write Abhaile's very first legend. Thank you all so much for sticking with me through this brief history of Abhaile. If you don't mind, humor me for a few more moments while I give you a different brief history of Abhaile. My buddies and I have been building Abhaile together through collaborative world building. We even developed Worlds with Friends as a way to turn world building into a game. If this is something that you're interested in, you can pick this up for free at drivethrurpg.com. We love stories. That's what this is all about. And we thought, hey, why not share that love with everyone? It's an extremely simple game, and you can play it in person, on a virtual tabletop, or like we do in good old instant messenger. And if you like Abhaile, keep your eyes peeled. As the world gets more and more fleshed out, developed and explored, we plan to launch the Abhaile world setting on Kickstarter, with plot hooks to run your own campaign anywhere in this amazing, diverse world at any time in its history. We'll have more information on this impressive undertaking as we get closer to a point where we have a product to offer. Until next time, my friends, love the dice and love each other.